Hi, we are live. Welcome to our Thursday talk. My name is Joyce, and this is our weekly dose of inspiration and activation. How are you doing? Let me know how you're doing and put down where you're listening from. Let me know. So today we are going to talk about the corrective experience. And maybe you don't know this word, and I hope it will become clear what this is as we go, as you track with me today. But it's something I've been learning from the book that I'm reading, and I'm really passionate about this. So I really hope that I can communicate clearly to you. And I want to start off with something that I read. It's not in that book. It's a different thing, but it gives a really clear picture about why the corrective experience is so important. So keep this picture in mind, but imagine you own a house. So you have a house, and every day you walk from the street to your front door, and you go along exactly the same path. So daily you go through the same spot straight through your yard. Every day you go exactly the same path. You walk there back and forth to your house. So over time there will be a well-worn path, like a scar in your front lawn. Your grass will be withered there, and there will be a path. And our mind is a lot like this. So when we repeat certain certain thoughts, and we repeat certain actions, it's like it forms like a scar, a path in our mind. So keep this picture in mind. It might help you during this live. Another example would be I've been going by car to school with my oldest boy now, and in the beginning I needed a GPS to know where to go. It's like a 15-minute drive, not far, but hey. But now I drive there without even thinking, without GPS, without even thinking where I'm driving. It's like I'm mentally not even there. So it became such a habit. It became a pathway in my mind. I don't have to think about it. So maybe you have other examples. I'm sure you have, about things that you do that are so normal and that you don't even need to be conscious about doing it. So put down some other examples, like brushing your teeth. So what are some things that you can think of? Anyway, so this is a picture, and now let's connect this to our topic of today. So if we take this picture to our relationships, how this plays out in our relationships. So we are all different. I think we can agree to that. We come from different perspectives, have different ideas about things. We have different backgrounds, sometimes even different cultures. And that can clash every now and then. That can clash when you work together with different people at your home, with your friends. We disagree often, don't we? And here's something that I often do, and I don't know if you do that too, but I use these two starts of my sentences that are not that great. So let me know if you do that too. So often I will find myself saying, you should, or you could, in conversations. And it's like the best intentions, but it doesn't always get received that well. Have you also used this already in your conversations? Like when you don't really agree with a person, or you think there's a better way of doing something or whatever, you start with like, you could do this, or you should do this. Why is this not so great? Well, it puts the other person on defense, because you come across like, hey, I am the expert here. Let me tell you how you should do things, or how you could do things. But you don't connect with the person and what they feel and what the emotion that they bring to the table at that moment. So what are better things that we can do? We should actually, now I use we should. So yeah, even in my lives, I use those two. If I do, let me know. But what can we do instead of this? We can use me too and you belong. So I don't mean that you literally say me too and you belong, although in some occasions you can do that. But it's more what you communicate through this. So the me too is communicating to the other person, I hear you and your feelings are valid. I can relate to those feelings. Or maybe it can even mean I have been there, I have felt those things. You belong, you is like you saying, hey, we're on the same team here. We are team members here. We're the same, we're family, or we're, work group. We will attack the problem together instead of placing distance between you and the other person. So me too and you belong are great ways to enter into discussions. Me too doesn't mean that you now all of a sudden turn the spotlight on yourself and say, hey, I have also felt this. And like you start talking about all your hurts all of a sudden. That's not what it is. It's also not like, oh, but you don't know how big my problem is. So if you think that's a problem, you should hear about my life. It's also not doing this. And it's also not saying that the actions of the person was right, the actions that flowed from their feelings. You just acknowledge their feelings and you identify with them if you have felt something similar. So with this all in mind, let us look to the example we looked at last week, the story we looked at last week. I just want to continue with that because it's a great example of how me too and you belong can be used in a real conflict. And so last week we talked about the story of David, Abigail, and Nabal, or Nabal, I don't know how you pronounce the name, but anyway, you can read it in 1 Samuel 25. I'm just quickly going to say more in big lines what happened there. So David came to Nabal, and he asked for food. David has been protecting that area and had been really good to the workmen of Nabal, but Nabal is a fool and he flat out refuses David. He disrespects David and says really offensive things to him. And David in return has quite a hot temper in this moment, and he reacts really strongly with saying, okay, let's just kill all the men of that family. And then you have Abigail, the wife of Nabal, and she intervenes, and she has such a graceful way of intervening, and she turns everything around with her words. Last week we talked about her response. Today we're going to continue with what she said, because Abigail communicates this to David. She communicates me too and you belong. And I'm just going to read a little part from her response, like one sentence. It's a long response. You can read it on your own in your own time if you want. But right now I'm just going to keep it with that. So let me see. So she said, I accept all blame in this matter, my lord. Please listen to what I have to say. I know Nabal is a wicked and ill-tempered man. Please don't pay any attention to him. He is a fool, just as his name suggests. So she goes on, and the rest is really interesting what she says, but for time's sake, I'm not going to read it. But in another translation, this is what she says. His name is Fool, and folly goes with him everywhere he goes. So what is she actually saying? She's saying, me too, David. I too am a victim of his behavior. The way he acted to you, he acts to me all the time. Wherever he goes, he is so disrespectful, so cruel. So she's identifying with the hurt that David had. And she understood that David wasn't there to be taught a lesson. She didn't come with, you should do this, or why did you do this, or you could have responded differently. She understood the need of David and addresses the need. And this is where you belong comes in. So before she addresses any issue, she will go and acknowledge his need to belong. And she recognizes and validates his needs. And you can see, so one of the things that Nabal said to David is like, who are you? Who is David? And that's a hurtful thing for David. And we're going to look at why this is so hurtful. But what Abigail offers is acceptance. And acceptance is like a medicine that stops rejection from the past to be relived, to come and be relived, because we all have this need to belong. And she recognized that need in David. Again, here with David, we see something really interesting. His reaction was not in proportion to what happened. So Nabal offended him, and he reacts with wanting to kill everyone. That's a little bit overreacted, isn't it? I hope you don't think that's a normal reaction. But what does this shows us? This shows that there's a deeper hurt in his heart that is actually causing this reaction. It's like David is walking around with a wound. Imagine if I had an open wound underneath my clothes. You can't see it, but the wound is there, and you just put your hand here. My reaction will be to pull away, and like I might even shout of pain because I have this open wound and you just touched it. You might think, what? Why are you doing this? Like, it doesn't make sense. I didn't put pressure on you. I just touched you. But you don't know that I have this hurt here. So this is basically what Nabal did with his comments and with rejecting his request for food. Nabal is like touching an open wound. And that wound, if we look at the story of David, we can kind of make up that he might have a deep father wound, because if you remember when it was time to for his father Jesse to show all his sons, he didn't show David. He didn't recognize David as his own son or as important enough to be brought to that meeting. Let's call it a meeting. So he had this father wound, a deep wound of rejection. And Nabal's reaction just brought that pain to the surface again. And what we also learn from this is no amount of achievement, because at this time, David already had men following him. He had people who accepted his leadership. He accomplished things, but none of these achievements could fix the hurt that he has inside of him. And that's the same for us. The only way we can fix hurts inside of us is when we replace it with truth. Remember the whole mind thing, the scars in our mind? This is where it comes in. Just keep on to that thought, okay? That picture that I told you at the start. So what did Abigail do? She spoke to who David was. If you continue to read at what she says, she will say, I'm just going to see if I can find it quickly. Oh, just give me a minute. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm not going to find it now. I'm not going to take too much time searching for it. Anyway, read it, please, because it's so cool. What she does is she speaks to who David is and not to the way he acts up. She sees through his pain. She recognized the pain because she also was someone who has suffered in her life. And she spoke so gently to him. And she replaced the hurt with healing words that corrected the lies that wounded him long ago. She will go on and talk about how God chose him and how he is blessed by God. And this is the way that the corrective experience works. You take a lie, that path, that scarred path in your mind that you have gone over and repeated, that thought that is caused by a lie, and you replace it by the truth, by repeating over and over and over the truth. So a new path is formed and the scar fades away. So back to us, back to our own mind, emotions, reactions, and feelings. When we find ourselves reacting really strongly to something that doesn't really need such a strong reaction, it probably points to a deeper pain in our past. Or if you speak to someone you're in that discussion and you notice that the person reacts really strongly to what you said, probably there's a deeper hurt behind that reaction. It's not just reacting to what you said in that moment. So we all need to hear "me too" and "you belong," not just from each other in our conversations, but first and for all from God. And we find this "me too" and "you belong" in God's words by finding what the Bible says about us, what God says about us, and letting it sink in deep, repeating it and repeating it again over ourselves so that we create new pathways in our minds. And then this is the really cool part. Once we start owning that truth, those truths, it's like they become tools in our back pocket that we can use when we recognize similar pains in other people's lives. Then we can talk these healing words over other people, and that's a cool thing, because now our past rejections, our past experience of hurt, become actually something that doesn't stop us anymore, but it starts working for us, because now we can identify with other people's pain. It allows us to sense possible pain behind reactions of people, and not only can we identify with it now, we have the tools now to speak live into their lives, to be a part of their healing, helping them to correct those lies about themselves, like speaking the truth in themselves. I placed the computer a bit too high today, so I'm like on my tiptoes. I don't know if you noticed it, but okay. Anyway, so now that was the whole explanation part. I hope that inspired you. Now the activation for us today. I don't know if you've done the thing that I suggested last week. If you did you enjoy? Was it easy to recognize those areas in your life or not? Let me know. But like last time, I asked to identify 3 areas in your life that you feel like a victim, that you don't feel victory in, and you react and act as a victim. If you still have that list, take it with you, or if you haven't done it yet, do it now. It's worthwhile. Write down what are the areas, what lies that might have caused that behavior, those thinking patterns. And then, now today comes a new column in, the 3rd column. Write down, search in your Bible what truths that are spoken in those situations over you, so that you can correct the lie with the truth. And like I said, because these lies, these hurts that we have in our hearts caused by lies, are like these deep scars in our minds. These are like pathways that we go over again and again. So it takes time to correct that. It takes time, and it can only happen by repeating truth over ourselves again and again, until those old scars, those old pathways now become new ways. And sorry, I just see a conversation going on here in the comments. Great. So that's the corrective experience. You correct the lies that caused wounds by speaking truth over yourself or over the other person again and again, until the old scars in your mind are rewritten by new paths. I hope this was valuable. I hope you can do something with this. And I think I didn't receive all the comments, because it looks like Ronnie and Christine are live with me. Hi, guys. Great to have you. So let me know, is this helpful for you? Can you do something with this? Can you recognize these things that I'm talking about? And that's actually it for tonight. Have a great evening, rest well, and see you again next week. Bye-bye.